It all began with a message I never expected. My name is Ryan, and I had always trusted my wife, Claire, even when life tested that trust. But a vacation, a simple getaway meant for relaxation, had turned into a nightmare that neither of us could have predicted. Claire returned from her trip, her demeanor different, distant, yet seemingly calm. I didn't know it yet, but her secret had already begun unraveling our lives. The first sign was subtle: whispered phone calls, sudden excuses, and the vague tension in the air that I tried to ignore. I had learned over the years to notice the smallest changes, the shifts in behavior that often hinted at deeper issues. But nothing prepared me for the bombshell that followed. Claire admitted in hushed tones that the vacation had not been as innocent as it seemed. The man she had been seeing had left a permanent reminder of their affair, a pregnancy. The shock was immediate, visceral. I felt a rush of emotions I couldn't even name: betrayal, anger, disbelief. My life, the family we had built, and the trust one had placed in her, all felt like they were crumbling. I wanted to shout, demand answers, but the weight of the news left me frozen, struggling to breathe through the storm of thoughts in my head. Then came the hardest blow. My daughter, Lily, barely 16, approached me with tears in her eyes. "Dad, how could you let this happen? How could you not see it coming?" Her words pierced me like knives, each syllable heavy with pain, confusion, and misplaced blame. I stared at her, trying to explain, trying to make her understand that I was not the one who had broken our family, but the words felt hollow, swallowed by the reality of her hurt. I realized then that this situation was far more complicated than I had imagined. Not only was I grappling with betrayal and a future that seemed uncertain, but I was also facing the consequences in the eyes of my own child. Her trust shaken, her perception skewed by anger and confusion. And in that moment, I understood that healing this family would require more than words. It would require patience, resilience, and the courage to face truths that none of us wanted to confront. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. Claire tried to explain, her voice filled with guilt and desperation, but every word seemed to widen the gap between us. I could see the struggle in her eyes, regret, shame, and perhaps a glimmer of hope that I might forgive her. But my mind was a battlefield, torn between love, anger, and the overwhelming responsibility of keeping our family together. Lily's reaction was the most difficult to navigate. She refused to speak to Claire directly, her judgment already formed. Every glance I gave her, every attempt to bridge the gap, was met with suspicion and resentment. "Dad, I trusted you to protect us," she said one evening, her voice trembling. "How could this happen under your watch?" I swallowed hard, knowing that explaining the complexities of adult relationships to a teenager was nearly impossible. I had been blindsided just like her, and yet she placed the blame squarely on me. Friends and relatives offered advice, but nothing felt helpful. Their words often struck the wrong chord, reminding me of how public and messy this betrayal had become. The pregnancy, the affair, the scandal. It was no longer just between Claire and me. It had seeped into our social world, our family dynamic, and most painfully, into the trust my daughter had in me. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself sitting alone in the living room, staring at the empty space where our family dinners used to bring laughter and warmth. The quiet was heavy, almost suffocating, and I realized how fragile the foundation of our family had become. I needed a plan, a way to navigate the emotional minefield that lay ahead. I began documenting everything, trying to separate fact from speculation, truth from emotional reaction. I spoke gently to Lily, reminding her that while anger and hurt were natural, understanding the full story was essential. I assured her repeatedly that her father's role had never been to betray or abandon, but to protect and support, even when circumstances seemed overwhelming. Slowly, she began to listen, though the wounds were deep, and her trust was fragile. By the end of the second week, the tension in the house was palpable, yet there were signs of cautious understanding. Claire's remorse was genuine, Lily's curiosity beginning to replace her immediate judgment, and I realized that surviving this ordeal would require more than anger. It would require strategy, patience, and unwavering commitment to the truth, no matter how painful it was to confront. The breakthrough came unexpectedly one afternoon. Lily, after days of simmering frustration, approached me quietly. "Dad, I just want to understand everything," she said, her voice softer, tinged with vulnerability. I nodded, motioning for her to sit beside me. For the first time, we had a conversation not clouded by immediate anger, but by a shared desire to make sense of the chaos. I explained the full sequence of events. The vacation, Claire's choices, the discovery, and my attempts to manage the situation without shattering the family completely. I told her about the moments of doubt, the nights spent wondering how to keep our family intact, and the steps I had taken to ensure that, despite betrayal, our home remained a place of safety and love. Lily listened, tears streaming down her cheeks, absorbing every word, every nuance, and slowly the accusatory edge in her tone began to soften. Then came Claire. She entered the room, hesitant but determined, and spoke directly to Lily. "I made a mistake, one that hurt everyone I love," she admitted, her eyes glistening. "But I want to make it right. I want our family to heal together if you'll let me." Lily's eyes darted between us, her heart clearly torn between anger and love. After a long pause, she finally reached out and hugged her mother, a small but significant step toward reconciliation. Over the next few days, the dynamics in the house slowly began to shift. Conversations replaced silence, questions replaced assumptions, and most importantly, understanding began to replace judgment. Claire took responsibility for her actions without excuses. Lily started to see the complexities adults sometimes fail to navigate, and I remained the steady presence, guiding both of them toward a sense of security. The experience left scars, of course, but it also reinforced the resilience of our family. Trust, once fractured, could be rebuilt with transparency, patience, and commitment. By facing the pain head-on, acknowledging mistakes, and prioritizing communication, we started to restore the bonds that had been tested to their limits. In the end, the situation that began as a devastating betrayal became a turning point. It taught us the value of honesty, the strength of forgiveness, and the irreplaceable importance of family. While the road ahead would require vigilance and continued effort, we had survived the storm, emerging not unscathed, but united, ready to rebuild, understand, and move forward together.